10, 9, ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Alien Pro Podcast. As they approached, they saw, or they thought they saw, they definitely did see movement in the main part of the craft. Strange-looking creatures were moving around inside, said Reme. They looked inside and looked under stress. They moved fast, and they were able to will themselves from one position to another in an instant. They were shadowy and expressionless, but definitely living beings. This from the Trinity UFO crash article. It's Sunday, October 9th, 2002. Excuse me, 2022. We've been going back in time. 2022. I'm Doug, and this is Dr. Bill joining us again this week. How's it going, Bill?
Hey, how are you?
It's 2022, Bill.
2022. So we're discussing a newspaper article from 2003, so it's close.
That was close. So, you sent this to me? Or,
Yep.
Is that where I got it?
Yeah, I sent it
Where
to
did
you.
Where did this come from? I mean, this is an article. 1945. This happened.
August 20th to August 25th, 1945. An operation by the U.S. military to recover a crashed UFO near San Antonio, New Mexico, which was 20 miles southeast of the Trinity site. So this is the Trinity UFO crash.
And it's important to note that these incidents happened around, the time that we, developed the atomic bomb. This was just August 6th was the atomic bomb, right?
August 6th was Hiroshima. August 9th was Nagasaki. And this crash occurred 11 days later.
So this goes into the theory that, all these sightings and things have revolve around our development of nuclear weaponry. I mean, we've talked about this many times. I mean, but there's more and more crashes, it seems, in the area. I mean, this is only one of a few incidents that happened, all along with, of course, Roswell in 47. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's interesting is they give the crash, and I wanted to mention, because the reason I read that excerpt is that they moved about seemingly at will, like, they're at one spot, and it's like they're stating that they would like disappear real quick, and that's the vision I get when they talk about moving quickly and seemingly at will. So I'm wondering, I always wonder about time dilation and that kind of thing, when I got to go back to Identified Flying Objects, the book that I'm reading. They talk about that type of thing, with the craft, being able to come and go.
The transtemporals? Transtemporals?
Extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials.
Tempestrals. Now I don't know if these are. I'm kind of torn because they're stating that these were small beings, and many times they say they have 4 fingers instead of 5. They don't have a thumb.
Well, you don't need. Well, you don't need.
You don't need a thumb.
Well, the thumb is handy, but you don't need your pinky. Our pinky is extraneous.
So we're thinking maybe that, maybe that's the one that dropped off.
Yeah. So that would be that could be something that could be
a
lost.
Possibility.
Or if you're bioengineering, why just get rid of it?
Yeah.
You don't need it.
It saves on
function.
Well, if you're making gloves and use less material. And,
that's right. So it's a whole industry's been saved.
Are you starting to buy in these are us from the future, Bill?
No.
These aren't. The book describes the fact that to travel across space, we would have to, it's hundreds, you'd have to have generations of people to get to the next solar system.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because of time dilation. And if you have a ship that can do constant acceleration, travel between the stars is perfectly feasible. The only limit to it is the travelers will have slower time, but time will travel at the normal pace. So you travel to Alpha Centauri, it's going to take, I don't remember how long it is. You travel to Alpha Centauri, it takes 6 light years or whatever it is, but the ship could do it in a month. So it's like theoretically it is possible for
But when
time
you
dilation.
get back, all your people will be dead, and
Yeah.
you'll have regular time.
Yeah. So
We don't care about that, though, really, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, it's so that
How do
interstellar.
they do it in a month? I mean, how fast? That's more than light speed, isn't it?
They're not traveling any faster than light, but there's time dilation. So the faster the closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time moves for you.
Right.
So for you, only a month or whatever the speed you're going at causes it to be only a month to go by, but normal time, Earth 6 years will go by. So you can't travel any faster than light takes to travel between stars, but for the people on the ship, time is slowed down, and they can, you can travel within, reasonable periods of time if you can do that.
Well, they just need to. We don't obviously have the technology for propulsion. I mean, well, what the book is stating is that it's not. You'd have to have generations of people to make it. I mean, this guy disagrees with. I don't know if he's talking about technology. He's not even talking about technology today to even do this. It's technology of well into the future.
He disagrees with Einstein.
Well, he cites Einstein in various areas in there. Like I said, it's like reading a textbook, so it's slow going. But, I mean, it can be done. He talks about, we're talking about the Fermi paradox and the other one. And I don't know. It just seems like he doesn't subscribe. He says if you take generations of people, you're making children, which are,
to travel
families.
between,
yeah, you're just and 100,000 years from now you make it. So
unless you're traveling
it's bizarre.
I mean, I have a paper in one of the books up here which lays out the time dilation and the travel time between stars, and I'm not going to pull it down. So he's looking at one viewpoint, but time will, I mean, if you travel to the core, the center of the universe, it's, I can't remember, 30,000 light years. So you can travel, if you're traveling at a constant acceleration, you can travel to the core of our galaxy in your lifetime and come back. But, it'll take you
Is this
60
light speed?
No, you're traveling. You can't travel faster than light. This is just constant acceleration. It slows time down for you, and you can actually travel to the center of the universe and back in your lifetime. But 60,000 years would pass on your Earth. Now, there's a great book, a series of books by Larry Niven called, I can't remember the name. Anyway. But there's a great book written by the great science fiction writer, when we used to have science fiction writers. And he wrote a book about a guy that was given a mission for he was frozen, and then he woke up, and they transferred his consciousness to a younger body or something, because he had cancer and he was frozen. And they said, well, you're people from the past are more durable for this type of thing. And he was supposed to man a ram scoop, and do like explorations for this this government on Earth.
Right.
And once he got the ship going, he was like, screw this, I'm going to the galactic core. And they couldn't do anything because it was his ship. So he went to the galactic core, and he came back to Earth like 60,000 years later. And the whole story is about his experiences exploring, sort of a post-apocalyptic world. It's a good book, really good book. But it's theoretically you can do that. The problem is that the RAM, there's people who have come up with papers that you can't. There's technical difficulties with using a RAM scoop, which is what Larry Niven was talking about. But theoretically, it is possible to travel great distances in a human lifetime within our galaxy using constant acceleration. So
Einstein, he figured out there could be wormholes too, right? Wasn't he one of the ones that came up with the wormhole theory?
I don't know. That sounds
There's
more like a Hawking.
equation.
Yeah.
There was some weird equation in there that he came up with that, there could be wormholes, kind of like Contact or Stargate is a good example of something that could be done. Well, I don't want to say could be done. So it theorizes could be done.
And I think, I think that stuff is theoretically possible.
That might be the way that has been done. What in what we're seeing, or what's being seen, I thought we're saying, but what's being seen, these things are coming through wormholes, or they can bend space. That's the other thing the example where you take the paper and bend it in half and poke the pencil through it, and that's it. That's it. The universe or whatever. So I don't know.
I mean,
they could come from there, I guess.
Wormholes is a possibility. Constant acceleration is a possibility, and basically, you could also have, if you're talking about slower moving craft, if it's not technically feasible, you could have like micro spacecraft which just have 3D printers in it. And Scott Sigler's book on his pandemic books talk about that. And it's a great story where you have these like micro things that just fall into the atmosphere, and then they just start replicating, and they create like an infection that leads to. It's a great story. Scott Sigler's one of the. He is a real science fiction writer, and it's the whole thing is about these. It's a way to transport across space, and so these things grow in people, take the people over, and they build like a portal. So these aliens can invade the Earth, and it's a great story. So there's a possibility. You send microsatellites to. I got a cough. You send microsatellites to various solar systems, and then they basically just, if they discover life, they just reprogram the existing life and take it over, or build nanomachines that could build other machines that could 3D print little people with 3 fingers and no thumbs.
It's four.
4 fingers. The
little pointy fingers, and they're not very tall either.
Yes, that saves on the printing cost. I should say that this article, the New Mexico UFO crash in 1945, I read about it in the book called Trinity: The Best Kept Secret by Jacques Vallée and Paulo Leopeza Harris. And that I'm reading that. I'm about 2/3 of the way through that, and then I also pulled this news article that was written in the Mountain Mail in Socorro, New Mexico. Oh, there's the spelling, which I was looking for. And 2003, 11/2/2003 by Ben Moffat. And Ben Moffat knew these 2 guys that discovered this crash when they were 11, 10, and 7, and riding the fences on their one of the kids. They leased land from the Bureau of Land Management to raise cows, and the dad worked. The dad worked for the Army. It's 1945. So the 10-year-old kid and the 7-year-old kid are riding the fences and repairing the fences, and they were looking for a cow that was going to calf.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they said in the book that's not in this article is that when they came on the crash, they heard like a screaming, which sounded like a rabbit's, a rabbit's scream.
Yeah, cry.
Rabbit cry.
Yell, yeah.
And they could hear that, and these people or whatever they were, and they said they thought they looked like children, were like moving back and forth in that weird way that they described, and they were making this high-pitched wailing noise. So As Padilla, and who was 9, and Baca, who was 7.
Yeah.
So
they see these things. They see this wreck, and there's an artist depiction of the wreck later on down the article that they said is dead on to what they saw. The side of the craft's ripped open. The craft has a hump on them. It looks like a cockpit on the top.
Yeah.
And they have these beings in there. And I know we were always trying to surmise, are these things clone? Are they clones? Are they sentient? What are they?
They're 3D printed beings.
3D printed
images.
Things.
Well, I complain about the Fermi paradox, and the simplest solution to the Fermi paradox is that they're already here.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, well, what about the Fermi paradox? Well, they're already here is the simplest solution.
What's the description of the Fermi paradox again?
Fermi paradox is, Fermi was just saying, given that the age of the universe, even traveling at sublight speeds, it is possible to explore the galaxy. And it's possible if a civilization developed itself in the core, in the center of the universe, in 4 billion years, they should have been able to explore every star in the galaxy. So just give it, even if you do the calculation, number of stars, travel time, whatever it is, 4 billion years is a huge amount of time. You could even take 500,000. Yeah, 500,000? 500 million. And, or 500,000, 500,000 years. You should be able to explore the entire galaxy using whatever, traveling, even if they traveled very slow. So it's not so much.
You're talking 500,000 years our time.
You're talking a billion years. Or a billion years. They should be here already. And so Fermi was like, well, where are they? Given that simple calculation, what's possible in the amount of time that's happened, they should already be here. And they're not. But I mean, that raises a question that then people go, well, then we're probably the only life in the universe then, which is absurd. And there are a lot of special circumstances for life evolving on Earth. I mean, we got this moon that keeps the atmosphere under, they say, I don't know if it's true, they say that the moon reduced our atmosphere so we don't have something like Venus. So our moon is a reason for that. And otherwise, we'd have an atmosphere like Venus, which is all, a soupy CO2 thing.
Well, plus you'd crush. I mean, it would crush it all. I guess the atmosphere is such that it would crush a car. I mean, the Russians. I watched something, The Universe, the other day, and the Russians have sent a few craft to Venus for whatever. It's weird.
Yeah,
for whatever reason
in the 60s.
And I'm like, why did they send it to Venus? I mean, why not Mars? I don't know. It's bizarre.
I think they did both. I think they sent to Mars and to Venus.
So we left some trash on Mars too. But Mars is a significantly less hostile atmosphere and environment than Venus. So I don't know why they would put their efforts on. I mean, if you're going to go somewhere to be able to stay, I think Mars, like we're doing today, we're exploring.
Mars is a reasonable option. I watched a NASA news conference recently, and one of the reporters asked the panel, whoever they were, if they would speculate on whether or not there was life on Mars, and they all just laughed. And I'm like, why are they laughing? Yeah, I'm like, why are they laughing? I mean, there's good evidence. And they're like, well,
you're talking microbial at this point, though, right?
Yeah, well, they're saying, well, and that's the question. There's good evidence that there's probably microbial life currently on Mars. And I don't know why they laughed. But
do you think there was ever a civilization on Mars?
No. But I don't know enough to actually give that answer a
logic. Yeah, well,
a reasonable. I mean, I don't know enough. I don't know enough to say.
I'm
I say I would. Yeah.
You're thinking like you're a PhD. I'm just thinking
That's
like
right.
a dreamer.
No, no,
It's going to be
no,
no, I don't think so. And I'm going to be like,
no,
I think there could, because it
no.
looks like there was watershed, and there's evidence that there was water in much higher, which doesn't mean doesn't automatically mean that there's life because there's water, but it could be a greater chance that there was something there. But and you know how things will look after millions of hundreds of thousands of years. Even this Earth, if we didn't had no life left on it, what would things look like in 100,000 years? And maybe they had nuclear war of some kind, and you know, but obviously there would be, you'd have to dig or something to find any evidence, and we're not there yet.
Well,
You know,
I have my new Mars atlas, and this guy says, Henrik Hargitay, he says,
how new is that? Is that
it's
from?
21, 22.
Oh wow.
He comes out with this every year. He's in Hungary. And he says, its surface looks lifeless, but we should remember that the lands on Earth were also lifeless and likely dusty until aquatic organisms colonized it, only around 500 million years ago. The Martian landscape has many similarities to early and perhaps future Earth. Future Earth, yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't know the history of Mars and when, because they obviously had rivers and water flowing on the surface and stuff like that. I would definitely say at one point Mars had life. And there is, I don't know, our scientists are very weird about sort of proclaiming that the possibility of life elsewhere. I think it just, I don't know. There's no evidence. But we are seeing evidence of water in other solar systems, and it used to be thought that water was really rare and special to Earth, and it's not. It's water's everywhere. There's water on Mars. There's water on the moon. There's
water
water
on other
other
moons of
moons.
some in our solar system.
There's that one
And
moon that's all water, with a crust of. They
yeah,
think there might actually be life on it because there's a crust of frozen ice around it, and underneath it, they
yeah,
think the water may be liquid, with geothermal activity allowing for life to survive, just like the sulfur vents in the ocean here.
yeah.
But so
But at
these
what point is there oxygen? I mean, you need plant life, right? What comes first?
no,
You need plant. The plant's not going to live.
oxygen is secondary to life.
Yeah.
So oxygen
So
came later.
plants come first, and then oxygen. Well, if
No,
you put,
bacteria, like the older bacteria and stuff, don't use oxygen, and oxygen's a poison to it. So when uh, there was actually in our history of our planet, when plants evolved, there was like a collapse. You can see it in the stratigraphic history. When oxygen came into the atmosphere, there's like an explosion of oxygen because of the explosion of plants producing oxygen. There was a rust layer that came out, and you can see it in the stratigraphic geologic history.
yeah, the
And
layers.
and oxygen is is toxic basically, and it causes once you develop the ability to produce oxygen, it's a great defensive mechanism. And then you had the plants first. They developed a defensive mechanism. I'm sure there's a lot of people are going to slam me for my hand waving at this point.
You're a scientist, Bill.
Yeah.
You know about these. This is fact.
Well, the more I learn, what I don't know. So so oxygen.
I'm sure we'll be reminded of that.
Yeah. So the oxygen came out, and then you had it was toxic, and you had like animals developed or bacteria developed that could use the oxygen, which caused for oxygen to cause an increased metabolic rate. So if we didn't use oxygen, we'd have a really slow metabolic rate. So
if we Okay, so plants came first before the oxygen, and then they produce oxygen.
Plants produce oxygen, and it was a
Can we? So if
defensive.
you,
Well,
if
it's a way to make energy, but it's also is a great defensive mechanism for other organisms.
can plants live without of today? Can they? If you remove all the oxygen out of a box, but you give them water and light, will they still live?
Yes, they
So
need
we
carbon.
could
They need
plant.
carbon dioxide, though.
Oh, okay, so we couldn't just plant some stuff on Mars and let it won't grow.
It's too cold, and the atmosphere might be too thin. But people used to talk about seeding the atmosphere of Mars, or not Mars, Venus, with bacteria that that can algae into and
Yeah.
to make Mars habitable. But I think it's the atmosphere is too toxic for that. But Mars is doable. It's carbon dioxide atmosphere. Um, there's a series of books called about terraforming Mars, which I haven't read. I have them,
Is
but I
that
haven't
what
read
that is? What is you always hear an alien and all that? What is? Do you
Alien.
know what
It's
is
changing.
terraforming?
It's changing the planetary surface to make it habitable. So there's a series of books called Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars, which is like a history of terraforming Mars. And they were very popular a couple decades ago. I have them. I haven't read them. I should read them. Should read them.
Yeah.
But it's just a way of it's changing so I don't know what they would do. I don't know what the process is on Mars. Part of it is you have to make the atmosphere thicker. In one of the scenarios is to take comets and deflect them to dump lots of water into the Martian atmosphere to make Martian to crash onto the Mars and make the atmosphere thicker. So there's it's doable. Theoretically, it's doable.
Well, we just hit didn't we just hit an asteroid with some kind of
Yeah,
craft to try to deflect it? Did it work? I
I
never
don't know.
found out.
I haven't been following it.
It's not making the news. Be interesting because that's and
NASA
what's going
has
on with Artemis? We're not
NASA.
till November now.
Yeah, the DART mission. NASA has had several reports on it. I haven't read them, but there is information, and I think the one of the telescopes, the Hubble, took a picture of the impact. So they have the data and the information on how useful that would be, and they called it the first planetary defense test,
Yeah,
planetary defense system, first test of our planetary defense system. Uh,
EDS.
yeah, Artemis. They moved Artemis into the barn because of the
Didn't make
hurricane,
it before the hurricane hit.
which
It
was
didn't really hit on that side too much.
they got a lot of
Although,
rain and there was enough wind, so the Artemis had a gust maximum of I think 62 knots, and that's 62 knots halfway up as measured halfway up the rocket. And they were actually getting gusting, I think, when the hurricane came through higher than that level. So moving it back to the barn was a good idea. They could have attempted to do a launch before the hurricane hit. The problem is if they had to scrub the launch, they wouldn't have had enough time to move the rocket into the barn. So I think they made a right decision. They moved it into the barn. They pushed it back to November, and they can do maintenance and checks and all that stuff in the barn, which is fine. The hurricane, it is what it is. They needed to get it. If they couldn't guarantee a launch on that one day, if they had failed to get a launch on it, they didn't have enough time to get it into the barn before the hurricane hit. So they made the right decision, and now they can do more checks. They can check the fueling system. There's like batteries that I don't think it's a problem, but there's batteries that are supposed to be fully functional. They're the emergency abort system batteries that have a certain criteria for functionality, and the organization that's in the launch, there's the launch safety organization had granted the Artemis rocket an extension on these batteries. I think the batteries are rated for 20 days, but they can, of course, they can go longer. and they had granted them an exemption on the 20-day rule for the launch windows that were coming up. But now that what they can do is once it's back, if they need to, they can change these batteries out. It's a good thing. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm disappointed they didn't like roll it out and launch it right away, but I can wait till November. I'd rather see a successful launch than an unsuccessful launch.
Well, it takes 3 days to get it back in the barn, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's slow.
They may have
So
they may
they
have
have to make a decision.
it's a big rocket. They may have
Yeah.
taken a they did like an expedited rollback, so I think they were able to do it in like 2.5 days. So
Oh, woo.
yeah.
You ever seen that thing it rides on? It's that
Yeah.
crawler thing. It's bizarre. Like
I actually wonder about how much damage that thing takes when they launch it. So that's something I'm curious about.
I just redo it. They'll use their surplus parts and put it back together.
Yeah.
I got an old one in the old one,
Just
back somewhere on in the property that they just
they
scavenge for parts and put it back together.
They might have two of them and they just rotate them, repair and rotate.
It's probably used to be the Atlas V,
Gemini.
Gemini. So let's circle back around to the Trinity UFO crash. It's the traditional. It crashed. It had the metal that you could bend it like they said like a cigarette pack, and it would spring back together. Spring apart, not crease, and that kind of thing.
Crumple it. You could crumple it, and you released it, and it just unfolded to like it was. Now the book.
So it looks like. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the book was saying I was, reading in the book, and this woman that wrote the book with Paulo Leopisa Harris, she spent a lot of time questioning and interrogating these guys, and coming back at them, she was saying that this picture in the article that from the Mountain Mail shows like a tear in the spacecraft, and what they're saying from under the questioning, the guy was saying it was more like a panel had blown out. So it's not like a rip in it. It's like it hit a they call it a Marconi tower, a radio tower, and then and it caused the kid, one of the kids, I think it's Remy or Baca, I think it's Baca, the younger guy. So he was saying that it looked like it hit the tower and it caused this panel to blow out. And it's not like a tear, but it's like a square or, a shaped panel blew out, exploded out from the craft. And they don't know what happened to that. And then the craft crashed, and then the creatures are running around making noises like injured rabbits and teleporting back and forth or whatever they were doing. And so the rip and the tear, but there was debris because the Army guys. And it's a weird story because they saw the wreck, they came back and they told their dad, and then like 2 days later, the one of the local cops and their dad and them went to explore the wreck. And when it got to the wreck, they didn't see it because it had been covered with brush and the area had been like raked.
Yeah, they raked up the debris and there wasn't any debris around.
Yeah.
But the kids saw, was it after that the kids saw the guys, the military was there, they got there to pick up this craft, right? And they were kicking the debris in a crevice and burying it. Well, because they didn't want to carry it away. They were too lazy or whatever.
And then a few days later, his Hispanic sergeant showed up to ask if they could go on their land and build a fence to drive the trucks through for the recovery.
Yeah. They had to grade a road, build a fence, and they said, "How come you can't use our gate?" And they go, "Yeah, it's not big enough. We got to do something bigger."
Yeah, it needed to be a 26-foot. It was 26 feet wide, the gate that the Army put in, and
how you can't even drive. You would have to take up the whole road. Where are they taking that thing?
He's also
they put the
I don't know.
saucer on a 26-foot wide truck. I mean, that's. I mean, you'd have to do in the middle of the night, I guess, and close the roads. I
Well,
mean, how would you transport it?
they put it on a low boy, put it on a low
Yeah.
boy, and he said they had to cant it. The kids were saying, these two kids, when they saw it, said they had to cant it because there was an overpass it had to go under. So they had to cant the craft so it was low enough to go under the overpass, and covered it with a tarp.
Yeah.
And the
I mean,
kids used to go out and spy on the soldiers. And he said they had a tent out there and they would listen to music, and they go into town to try and pick up on girls. That cafe is still there. We should go to that cafe. And
yes, we should.
and he said when they got his dad and the copper, when they went out there, went inside the
Oh,
craft.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's from the book, right? Because that's not in the article.
Yeah. And they said the dad and the copper, they went in the craft and they told the kids to stay out. And the dad worked for the army, and he told them, he said, told the kids, don't talk about this, because they
Yeah.
thought it was some sort of top secret craft or something. And one of the kids, can't remember if it was an aunt or a mom or something, when the Trinity bomb went off, because where this people lived, the flash woke them up, and the mom peeked out of a crack on the house when the bomb went off, and it permanently blinded her in one eye.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, and so it's an interesting area, and I couldn't find. And I spent a lot of time digging through the book, because there's a list in the book of the crashes, the UFO crashes that happened in this area, or supposedly happened in this area.
Well, there's like 3 of them in Aztec, weren't there?
There's a
In this
bunch,
time?
but yeah, I will find that list, and
We'll go over that.
we'll go over that next week. But you saw me sitting here digging through the book, and I didn't bookmark the list, which is just dumb. And I couldn't find it. And of course, when you're trying to find it in a hurry, you can't find it.
So it just intrigues me, and I don't know if the book touched on this, about when they buried the debris, because they didn't want to carry all the debris out or something. So they put it in a crevice and just put dirt and brush over it. Was there anything in the book about that?
Yeah, there is. And what happened is that they came in, there's a dam, a flood control dam in that area. And the crevice, the guys have gone out back later, decades later, and the crevice has been filled and graded over. So where they were kicking the debris is under 10 feet or 20 feet of dirt now, because they came in, they graded it, and they put a dam in. What was also interesting is when Valley went out there to look at it, the spot where these guys said the craft had landed, somebody planted a bunch of noxious plants.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and they're if you touch them, they'll cause like skin irritation. There's 2 different plants were planted, and they're growing right where the craft supposedly landed.
That's
And
weird.
Valley was speculating that somebody came out there and planted these things to prevent people from digging up the area.
Yeah.
And what else was he saying?
Yeah, because I looked at it
Yeah.
had a milepost sign and that kind of thing. I'm like, man, you could probably find this place.
Yeah.
But, if it's under 10 feet of dirt, that you'd take an excavator to get anything out of it. But I'm surprised.
Well, Valley
If
went
you
there.
or I would have saw this, we'd have went and dug up the stuff.
Yeah, Valley went out. Valley went out there with the idea with metal detectors and the whole thing. I haven't finished the book, but they went out there, I think, a couple times to explore the site, and they didn't find anything. And then the kids said that they went into the craft and tore one of the kids, the older kid, I guess, grabbed a not a crowbar, but it's one of those bars that they use on when you chain. Oh, the when you chain something down onto like a low boy, it's got like a ratchet system, and you take the bar and you ratchet in the
strap. Yeah, the strap.
So he took one of those bars, went into the craft, and he knocked this thing off the wall. The problem is the picture of the thing, it just looks like a aluminum cast fitting, and the only thing they could find that it resembled was a part from a wind vane. windmill,
Oh, really?
and they think it might have been from the Marconi Tower, which had a generator on it to power something on the
Oh,
Marconi
so it
Tower.
was an alien. It was part of what they hit.
This is what Valley is speculating because, and these guys kept the part, and one of the kids had it, and then the other kid got, but the army showed up after the army had come in, and these guys had cleaned the area out, and they came up and they asked to search these people's homes, looking for, I guess, material, and they let him do it. So one of the kids had this thing. He called it his tesoro, his treasure in Spanish, and he the other kid buried it in took it because the army was searching for it, buried it in one of their sheds, and the shed was also used as a like temporary housing for um, farm workers, basically
Yeah.
people that would come and do stuff. And there was a guy, I don't know if it was a shepherd, that was staying on their ranch, and he was sleeping in this shed, and he had nightmares and said that these creatures had come in and were asking for their tesoro or something. And he was the guy was freaked out, woke up and was getting ready to shoot somebody.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a strange story, but the kid had buried this thing from that he took out of the craft in this shed. And the guy still had it. So the guy went to move to Washington State, took it with him, kept it all this time. And Valley they've actually taken pieces from it and tested it, so it's not conclusive at this point. And the aluminum piece looks like it is just a sand cast aluminum something. And like I said, Valley was speculating that it might have been from the Marconi windmill and got put in the craft by one of the GIs when they're cleaning up the area with the stuff that they weren't kicking in the ditch and covering with stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great story. The kids spied on the GIs when they're staying there and cleaning it up, and were able to watch them.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I mean, it's typical. I mean, like I said, I was looking at the milepost. I was trying to look it up. Well, man, you could just go there. I didn't know that it was under. I just envisioned that they kicked it in a crevice and kicked dirt and brush on. You could just go get
Yeah, Valley and Palo would have
already thought of that.
Palo, Jacques Valley and Palo.
That.
Yeah, they did that. So this one says in the article here, it also says, maybe this was the list. Maybe that's why I couldn't see it. This was the list. God, I'm a nut. It says it's in the article. It's not in the book. And I marked it. So yeah, great. Good me. From 1946 through 1949, 25 UFO sightings that may have contained extraterrestrial life were reported worldwide by the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. I've never even heard of that. Of those, this is the list. Of those, 7 came from New Mexico, including one near Magdalena, 1946, Socorro, 1947. That was the one where Zamora had seen the craft land and take off, and it left burn marks and things. And Zamora, I mean, in this area, Zamora is, I think, distantly related to these guys. So, because it's a rural New Mexico community. Roswell, actually near Corona, July 4th, 1947. Plains of St. Augustine, Catron County, July 5th, 1947. Aztec, 1948. White Sands, 1949. And Roswell again, 1949. Another was the Pattern 2 on the Hopi Reservation of Arizona in 1947. So this area had a lot of potential UFO crashes. This is a list I couldn't find because I'm wiped out from yesterday.
That's crazy. That crazy amount.
Yeah. I've never even heard of this. I got to look this place up. Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Cool. And then I should say Valley, he's 80 years old, was going out there and investigating this stuff. This book's 2 years old. So did I
Wow.
send it to you? Did I send you a copy?
Which one is it?
It's not a hardback. It would be an ebook. I might have sent you a copy of an
Yeah,
ebook.
maybe. What's it called?
Trinity, the best kept secret.
Oh, I'll have to
So
look. Yeah, I think you did. I had to download it. I had to download some weird format.
it's EPUB. It'll work on your iPad.
Yeah, I was able to convert it.
Okay.
Wow, that's amazing. So you
Yeah.
got anything else on this, or
Yeah, let me
this is
take.
your tip? It's a bit,
So these
you
guys,
know,
well, one of the interesting things is this one of the guys, the younger guy, joined the New Mexico Reserves National Guard when he was 13.
no, 13. They
Yeah.
allow that?
Yeah,
Or
they
they
did
say it
that.
was 18?
No, they allowed 13 because the National Guard was so decimated from World War II.
Yeah,
They allowed him to join the, I think this is the guy that became the cop later.
it's amazing.
Yeah, they allowed him to join the National Guard at 13, and he was doing guard duty. That might even be in here. Oh yeah, here. 1936, National Guard. Jose Padilla was born in San Antonio, November 1936. While at Socorro High, he left to join the National Guard at age 13, when very young children were allowed to sign up because of the World War II death toll in the New Mexico Guard.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
crazy.
he actually became a safety inspector for the California Highway Patrol, and actually was shot once while he was a highway patrolman.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, when they were interviewing him for the book, he was being evaluated because he still had a slug in him, and the doctors were concerned, about it causing problems, and they were thinking about removing it, and they decided not to. Decided to leave it alone, which is probably the best practice. Leave it alone, because at his age, I think the anesthetic is more of a problem than the surgery.
Yeah.
No.
Well, then they had the story of they had pieces of this thing and they used it to use it to stop a leak in a brass pipe under a windmill at their house.
The foil, he kept it for years. It was he wrapped it on the threading for a fitting for the windmill. Wrapped it around the threading, and because he took the part, something had happened with the part and it needed to be welded. And so he took it somewhere to be welded, and the guy's like, it's brass, we can't weld brass.
Yeah.
So he took this foil and he wrapped it, I guess the pieces, and wrapped it to bind the pieces together, and then put it into the pump at the windmill at the farm, at the ranch. And he said it worked for years. And eventually, they were gone and they moved, and the well got torn out, or the windmill got torn out, and the part's gone.
Piece of alien technology.
Yeah.
We just can't get that piece.
Well, he had someone else.
Can't get that piece of alien technology. We're just using it to repair windmills now.
Yeah.
And put into the ground.
It worked well.
Never to be seen again.
It was a great thing to repair the windmill. And he had someone else found another piece that they thought came from the downed craft. He had a cousin or somebody had found it when he was riding the ranch. And he just thought it was scrap metal and threw it. I guess they had a scrap metal pile, and he just threw it in the scrap metal pile. And they're like, he told one of them about it, and they're like, it sounds like it was something from the crash.
Wow.
But what I find interesting is that I think the Army came in there and camouflaged the wreck and raked the area. And probably raked the area, threw crap into the thing, picked up pieces and threw it into the craft, raked the area, and then later came in. So I'm curious on that. Now the book is going into more detail, and the next chapter in the book is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Ah.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Dun 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 dun. We'll see what's going on with that. So we're gonna go for another 10 minutes. Do we want to talk about the UFO lie from the New York Post?
Yes, let's talk about the UFO lie. AAWSAP or ATIP, I should say. And that's what we're going to call this episode. Is it AAWSAP? Is it ATIP? Is ATIP AAWSAP? Is AAWSAP ATIP? I mean, is Elizondo a liar? Is he telling the truth? What do you think?
Well, actually, the New York Post Basement Office episodes are excellent, and I've watched the next two, which talk about Skinwalker Ranch, which are very good. And it makes me want to read the book Skinwalkers from the Pentagon, which I have on my iPad. And I've been confused when I've been reading about AAWSAP and AATIP because I see these different names and stuff. And this YouTube video by the New York Post, they actually explain that because apparently it went out under a bunch of different names that were sort of related. And then they were talking about the confusion for when the guy that does the Black Vault, the confusion for when you're requesting documentation through the Freedom of Information Act, you have to use the right nomenclature, the right names.
Yeah.
Which doesn't matter because anything that could be, the Freedom of Information Act is whatever they decide to release. And under the executive order from Ronald Reagan, they can classify anything on the spot, and then they can deny the existence of the document on the spot. So freedom of information, its teeth basically have been pulled by the executive order by Ronald Reagan. So AATIP and AAWSAP are essentially the same thing. AATIP was like a renaming. Was it by Elizondo or somebody?
It was a nickname, they said.
Yeah, it was a nickname.
We don't know if Elizondo created the nickname and then gave himself the director title. I don't know. I mean, it went back and forth.
Well, I think there's two different parts to the story. There's the money part that went to like Bigelow and Skinwalker Ranch, and my feeling at this point is that's just money wasted.
Yeah, and that's what they were trying to cover up and then Bigelow was a big contributor to Harry Reid.
He didn't contribute that
who
much.
In turn gave him funding for it was like that they didn't like that and they were trying to cover that up. I think
he didn't give Harry Reid that much money. I think Harry Reid
it's only $20,000. It wasn't that much. It was like $20,000, but it's the idea.
I think Harry Reid is the principle, but I think Harry Reid was genuinely interested in having this stuff looked at.
Yeah.
So he got money from Bigelow. Yeah, he was friends with Bigelow.
But he didn't want to visit the ranch where the Dino Beaver was.
Dino Beaver. He didn't want to be
the Dino Beaver.
He was still looking out for his reputation. He was still an active senator at the time. So
yeah.
That's fine. And they talk about this guy, Hal Puthoff, who did, he was the guy, one of the guys who would like the stare at goats. Have you seen that movie? The stare at goats movie. It's also a book.
Yeah, the men who stare at goats.
Goats, yeah. I've read the book and I've seen the movie. Hal Puthoff is also a Scientologist, and he's risen to the top level of Scientology. He's an OT7, which is, I can't remember what it is.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he's an OT7 in Scientology. Yeah, top of the whatever they do.
It begs the question. I've heard this brought up before that all these sightings are paranormal. We know that Skinwalker Ranch is whatever it is, but they're paranormal. Even the UFO sightings, they're thinking is some weird, it's tying in somehow with paranormal activity.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
who knows? But
we make fun of Skinwalker Ranch, but I do still think you haven't seen it, but I just watched that interview with Travis Taylor. Travis Taylor. It's a good interview. I mean, I still think
does he talk about Skinwalker?
He does. He does.
Does he say why? I mean, I'm going to watch it anyway, but clue me in. Is he still supporting Skinwalkers?
He's still supporting Skinwalker. I think he's genuinely honest in trying to figure if something's going on out here. I mean, we complain about the holes and the logic and the experimental stuff.
The reality.
And the reality of the thing. But, he has
seen anything, there isn't any legitimate anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing at all. I mean, I'm sorry. It just doesn't. It's Oak Island with UFOs.
It is.
They're going to go years. They're going to milk this thing for years.
They're filming season 4 right now.
And who's watching it? Us.
I will watch it.
We're still watching it.
Absolutely.
Well, it's more interesting than Oak Island where I found a button.
But I think he's genuinely, he's doing a decent job. And I mean, I wrote a defense of him at some point. If it gets too bad, I will read my defense of Travis Taylor.
I think you should do it.
Now,
If
I
think you should do it, Bill.
I will think
Fellow
about it.
scientist Travis
Scientist.
Travis Taylor.
Travis Taylor. He is an accomplished. He's an accomplished person. I mean, you can't deny his accomplishments. And
he's got several degrees, and they're legit. Because people say he doesn't have degrees, and it's all provable. We know.
It's stupid.
You know, I don't deny him his degrees. I deny him his ability to be a scientist. And to solve, he should know better than to do these carnival acts that he's doing at Skinwalker.
It's an,
he should use you said yourself, the scientific process is not there, for lack of a term you would use.
He complained in his interview that people don't understand the scientific method, and I don't agree with that from what I'm seeing from the show.
I'm not a scientist, and I can tell it's garbage. You know, it's like
they're pushing the envelope of believability. But he does
theatrics.
It's theatrics. It's an entertainment, but
and it's money.
It's money. It always comes down to money. I enjoy it. I mean, he is an accomplished scientist. He does know what he's doing if he's allowed to do it. But his hands are going to be tied because he's part of the entertainment. So we don't know where he's coming from, how much he does not have final say on the editing of the show or what gets presented.
He's doing no more than trying to legitimize the project to me. You know, he's in it. It makes it, you know, it makes it seem real.
He is there to legitimize it. Yeah.
So, that's his role, but he should know better. Shame on him. He should know better. There's been no Dino Beaver. I haven't seen the Dino Beaver.
Dino Beaver. I will continue to give him the benefit of the doubt until next season, and then we'll see. But I am looking forward.
Look at his checking account. You'll see. You'll see the reason that Travis Taylor's doing this. Travis Taylor's. Got my check. I got my check.
I got my check. Shut up. So anyway, coming back to the UFO lie, it's good. The show is good because they break it down. To me, they broke it down to the point where you have two different camps. You have Elizondo and Chris Mellon, and you have the Lakatsky. So our Bigelow camp. So you have the what they call it, the paranormal Disneyland component, which is Skinwalker Ranch. And then you had sort of the breakout component, which was Elizondo and Mellon. And they are focusing on the documented anomalous phenomena that the military is seeing. So I would say that Elizondo has done, and Mellon have done a service. So to break this out, get this taken seriously. It should be taken seriously. And the other stuff that looks like and this comes out in the later videos done by the Basement Office, the problem with Skinwalker Ranch and all the money that they were throwing at it was the people working. Bigelow wasn't there. The chief scientists that were involved weren't there. So you had a bunch of people running around at the thing, and you got Bigelow going, I want results. So they found results for him. They had to justify their existence. So you got people, you know, whatever's going on. And it just comes down to you have to have good supervision if you're going to do stuff like this, especially if you got, you know, an arrogant millionaire yelling at people, telling them that they got to have results or everyone's going to be fired.
I could picture him doing that too.
Yeah, and if you want to if you're working there and you're getting good pay and it's a good gig, you're going to get results. People are going to say, "Oh, I saw this and it looked unusual," and I think they're just milking the cash flow.
You know what's interesting is Bigelow, after he backs out of everything now recently, and I don't know how recently this is, but you and I have seen it, where he all of a sudden is trying to find his dead relatives through paranoia. And he's had a lot of tragedy, in his life.
Yes, he's not. It's
And
not fun.
he's trying to resurrect these dead relatives through paranormal means. And I'm wondering, as I watched this, if there's some tie-in. Skinwalker,
And
Bigelow, paranormal, dead relatives. I don't know. I was,
well,
trying to find the weird tie-ins.
The Puthoff thing adds another element to that. And I've actually started reading some alternative books. And I meant to have them over here, but I don't have them. But I'll talk about it next time. My impression is, I don't know, Puthoff is sort of out there, and the associates with him are, they're staring at goats trying to kill goats.
Yeah.
Sort of people. So they're out there. Scientology, OT7, the guy's on another planet.
Yep.
So that brings in and they're also associated with like the CIA and stuff like that. And Chris Lato and his he did a great interview recently with this woman professor that's a religious studies person, and she wrote a book about UFOs, which I picked up. I'm going to read. And he's like, he looks at Puthoff and some of these people and he says they're all tied in with the CIA. So, but Elizondo, I think, has ties in with the CIA through his dad and of course through his work. But that Puthoff is a whole nother case and scenario. That's out there. Elizondo and Mellon, I think, were genuinely trying to get some traction on the anomalous phenomena, flying phenomena. So that's
they made it sound like Elizondo was involved. He wasn't the director, but he was involved in delving in the UFO aspect from the outside, almost.
Yeah, and since there was no funding, he was allowed. I mean, a lot of organizations do this. He was director of ATIP. And it's
isn't real.
Yeah, well, it says
real.
It's as real as you want it to be. And any organization, especially a non-funded program, you can name it whatever you want, and you can be director. And he was granted permission to do this as long as it didn't interfere with his other duties. He said, "Okay."
James Lutasky was the actual director of AAWSAP, right?
It was AAWSAP, but he was gone at some point, and Elizondo was brought in to do, he said, security and counter ops or counterintelligence and security.
Yeah.
And then once
2012, Elizondo took over for him to 2017 when he resigned.
Yeah. So
right?
But he had his other duties, and then he had this side job. Now, a lot of government agencies, universities do this. You are allowed to do independent projects. So it's an unfunded independent project within the Pentagon. And Elizondo, I would say, was definitely the director of this. It was not an official project. It was not a funded project. So it is true when the Pentagon says he was not the director of AAWSAP. And
that's true.
That is true. But he was director of an unfunded project, which was AATIP. And he was granted permission to work on this project as long as it did not interfere with his other duties. So you can't. I mean, it's splitting hairs. Corporations.
Yeah,
go on.
They're looking for information on AATIP, then you get denied because they're like, there is no AATIP.
Yeah,
but if you look for AAWSAP, and then it links into Lutasky. Well, of course, Elizondo sued through the Inspector General. I don't know what the results of that was. I think they're sticking to their guns that he wasn't involved, I think.
Yeah, well, the suit, I think, is more, it's to protect his reputation, and it's to protect his security clearance, and probably his pension. So he's doing that because there are people, obviously, in the Pentagon that want to, that are pushing back on what he's done. And one of the things, I don't think there are people that are happy about the release of these videos. And I'm sure
it was unauthorized, and his pension's at risk anyway, I think, because he's done some weird shit.
Yeah, I think he's okay. But Yeah, but I think the thing that he's filed with the IG is preemptive to prevent further pushback by the Pentagon at his pension, at his security clearance. And it's just they are pushing at him, he's pushing back a little bit. Now his problem is he sent these videos to Chris Mellon. The videos were not classified, but they were not authorized for release to the general public, and that's well documented. And there's a video of him when he was asked about sending these videos, and he got really embarrassed about it. So he screwed up. That's a big screw up on his part, and it's well documented that Chris Mellon got these videos from him. Now, Elizondo did not release the videos to the public. Mellon did that, and Mellon has said that he did this. So there can be a backlash to Elizondo because of this release, because he gave them to Mellon. But then Mellon was a big shot at the Pentagon, and Mellon could rightfully have access to these documents. So you can't say that Elizondo necessarily did anything wrong. His mistake, he may have technically made a mistake, but technically he didn't do anything wrong. So, and Mellon,
giving them to Mellon is just like giving them to the pub. They're one and the same.
But Mellon was an assistant something he was a big wig at the Pentagon, and he's heavily connected, and they're not going to do anything to Mellon. They're not going to touch him.
He's rich anyway. You can't. He doesn't care.
Yeah, they're not going to touch him. He's too well connected.
I've got my own money.
So Elizondo's on the hook for this release, but he's not the bad guy in the release. Mellon is, but nothing's going to come back. So it's like the that aircraft carrier that burnt down in San Diego. Remember that was in the news a few years ago. So that was a disaster because the port captain. This is so funny. They never train anybody on firefighting. Well, for this aircraft carrier catches on fire. The port captain is fighting with the ship's captain about who's responsible for fighting the fire. So that was a mess. They hadn't had anybody trained to fight the fire, and the aircraft carrier burnt down and is a total loss. An aircraft carrier burnt down is a total loss. So they got some Schwabi that they decide is responsible. They got to blame somebody. So this kid, they just put him on trial. He was found not guilty. And this is a military trial. And a military trial are ruthless for how they treat people. And the captain in charge of this military trial said there's no evidence that this guy started the fire. So the bigwigs at the Pentagon and the Navy were looking for a scapegoat for why this aircraft carrier burnt down, and they tried to pin it on this kid. And that's the problem. That's what's Elizondo's problem is people may be upset at the release of these videos, and they feel they got to pin it on somebody. And he's
it's all about blame, man.
Yeah, he's the fall guy, and that's why he needs to be careful, because they're looking for a fall guy, and these people hold grudges forever. So, yeah, that's Schwabi. And the thing is that the other guy that they think actually may have lit the fire has already been discharged, and the Navy's like, oh, we don't have any authority to pursue charges against him because he was discharged.
He's a civilian now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, they had to pin it. They when the bigwigs screw up, or when there's a screw up, and the release of these documents, I'm sure there's people view it as a screw up. They got to scapegoat it, because when something like this happens, ultimately what it should happen is that the people at higher levels are responsible for when this happens, and they should take responsibility. But nobody does anymore.
So the genie's already out of the bottle, so it really doesn't matter who you want to blame. It's already out there. So
yeah, and I don't know.
It doesn't really matter who's the blame. It's done.
And who knows? There's so many chiefs at the Pentagon. You don't know what's going on with anything.
Yep.
So yeah, Steve is sending. Oh God. Oh my God. This is terrible. Oh, that's so offensive. I'm gonna have to.
Oh, I see that. All right, you ready to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook. Check out our website and all of our episodes on alienprobe.net. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Check out Twitter and Instagram at Alien Probe Pod. Like and smash that subscribe and like button on YouTube at Alien Probe Podcast. Put in Alien Probe Podcast and it'll bring it right up to the top. Thanks to our senior producer, the traveling Robert Anthony. We got a really nice picture of Robert and his exploits in Saigon. And thanks again, Dr. Bill. Appreciate it.
Okay. Watch the skies.
Watch the skies.